next, we have another segment moderated by Axios technology and business reporter, Kokalitcheva.
All right, I know you're all looking forward to our happy hour, but just hang in there for one more guest who's been in the venture and startup world for a really, really long time. And at the beginning of this year, he took on one of the biggest jobs in the industry. So please welcome Y Combinator CEO and President, Garry Tan.
Thank you for being here. Great to see you guys.
All right, so we got to be super entertaining to keep people here. So you started your official job at Y Combinator at the beginning of the year. You went through one batch already. So my first question to you, selfishly, is are you going to bring back demo days in person? Because I really miss the soft pretzels we would get during the breaks.
I'm thinking about it. We're bringing back so many aspects of YC to in-person, and then demo days on the list. But there are a few other things we want to do first. We're actually bringing the whole, almost all of the batch. So we used to have an option for people to do Y Combinator remotely, and this is sort of the first one where we really, really think people should be back in San Francisco. This last batch, 86% of people did come back, and the feeling was awesome. So we think it'll get to 99 or 100% this time.
Okay, but demo day, are you getting like pushback on that, or?
Well, the interesting thing is that demo day done on Zoom means that the founders can raise more money. So that's one of those things. YC always will be about making founders as successful as possible. So if we can figure out a way to not mess with that, we might actually just throw a bunch of really great parties, including for VCs. So, and press.
Fair enough, because I know the VCs love to gossip about YC demo days. That was like the top activity. So one of the biggest changes you made so far in your short amount of time at the helm of YC has been winding down the Continuity Fund, which was the late-stage investing vehicle. Why?
Well, like anyone, as a new CEO coming into a new role, one of the most important things is to try to focus and try to figure out, what's funny is we actually tried to do office hours on ourselves, and we said, what is the thing that is hyper unique about YC? And for me, having gone through the program, being a partner there previously, I just realized early is why YC exists. And in the first 100 days of coming into a leadership role, you got to sort of make all your changes. So
that's very presidential.
Yeah, and that was what I wanted to do was, really do the right thing for our community. And it was a really, really hard decision because we let go some really amazing, really smart people. But at the same time, it's really about how do we serve the founders. And this was the best way we could do that.
Was the most recent Continuity Fund fully deployed? What was the status?
Oh yeah, we're still deploying some of it. And really the focus for me is YC's pro ratas are incredible, and we're just going to keep doing that. And that I've actually been sort of on a listening tour with all of our best partner VC, GPs, managing directors at all the firms you could think of. And the number one thing there is that we can be far better partners to all of the people who we've already made a lot of money with. I mean, you look at every Sand Hill Road VC firm, and there's usually a fund returner that was a YC company. And so we just want a lot more of that. And this makes things a lot simpler on that end.
So they're just happy to not compete with you as much?
Oh, we can be friends better. We can be much better friends.
Okay, fair enough. The Continuity Fund was actually something that one of your predecessors, Sam Altman, had set up during his time in your position. Is the implication that was a mistake?
I think that they did incredible work. And some of it was like bringing YC into the future. I mean, you have to remember, today YC will actually invest $500,000, but in the early stage. But when I did YC, I think we got $12,000 for 7%. So, the world's YC early was a very fringe thing. Like people really didn't understand that you could fund people in batches and then have actual real good outcomes. I think the Airbnb investment was something like $18,000 that returned more than $2 billion. So it's pretty astonishing that that happened. And of course, as something becomes successful and more well-known, I think that how you fund it, whose money you invest, YC went from a very fringe thing that was a very successful startup into now something that is really a part of the firmament of venture capital. And when Paul Graham and Jessica Livingston started YC, I don't think they had any idea that that would happen. I'm pretty sure all they wanted to do was help people just like them who were very technical, who had never started something before.
Is the current venture environment, did that impact the decision, sort of the ability to make growth investments?
No, I mean, a lot of it really is about, how do I make those 12 weeks when people come in and they sometimes are just the team. Like, increasingly we're experimenting again with no idea teams. And actually, it's sort of amazing how many of the companies in the batch, some crazy percentage of them actually pivot during the batch. And so really it's about how do I get as many people working at YC? We're only 80 people now. How do we get as many people on that team to be rowing exactly in the same direction, which is what do we do to make a lot more magic happen when there are 2 or 3 people who have never started a company before? What do they need? And let's focus on that.
What are some other major changes you want to make?
Well, it sounds like bringing back Demo Day might be something I need to get on. I think that the craziest thing is, I'm sort of a customer. I mean, when I first found out about Y Combinator, it was actually because I was at Palantir. It was 10 people in a room in Palo Alto and Page Mill Road, and our whole thing was how do we hire the best software engineers that everyone knows? And so we would basically take people to lunch and try to get them to quit their jobs. And so the only 2 cults that were more powerful than Palantir at the time in my memory was Facebook, which ended up being a much bigger outcome, and Y Combinator, where we met YC founders who had given were given $12,000 for 7%, just like I did a few years later. And I remember they would just not quit. They were like, nope, we're working on our startup. And then I remember right after that, they left, and then the chatter in the office was like, haha, look at those chumps. They took, they gave away 7% of their company for $12,000. And of course, I was working really, really hard at the time. I think I was sleeping in the nap room on Page Mill Road. It smelled horrible. And, I was coding and designing until, 4 a.m. And I'm sitting there staring at like the popcorn ceiling thinking, wait a second. Those guys might have only gotten $12,000, but they own 93% of their company. I'm working like a dog for Peter Thiel for 25 or 50 basis points of this company. Who's the real chump? And so that's like sort of the key thing about YC. I think that we can continue to build that. I ended up finding out about Hacker News. I read all of Paul Graham's essays, and then I realized, oh, I wasn't meant to have a boss. I could actually own the equity in the business that I create, and I can actually be the person who takes advantage of my own work, my own labor. And that was such a powerful idea that I think that's what YC needs to continue to be about. Like, startups have continued to grow, and then the thing is you can't do it alone. And I think YC to me is like the most powerful community of people who use each other's services. And then more importantly, like when you get punched in the face, when you lose your best customer, when your director of engineering quits, when horrible things are happening, when your lead investor pulls out, you have not just a lot of founders, frankly, outside of YC, and I remember this from when I was starting my company in 2008. You have no one to talk to. Like, do you think that you can go to an event and sit next to someone and actually spill your guts on what's happening? You can't, because you're sort of stuck in this killing it culture. Like, I'm killing it, you're killing it. You don't share what's really going on. And I actually think that one of the reasons why YC can be so successful is that there's a culture of people actually helping each other. And it's more or less priceless. Like, community is super priceless. And so that I think is the future of YC. Like, we're going to continue to do media. We're going to keep teaching people, hey, you weren't meant to have a boss. We're going to continue to build software. We build I built an internal social network that's used by 1 in 3 founders in the network every single day, and that's where we're sort of sharing the real secrets about how to do things. It's sort of the core of our community. And then at the end of the day, like, we're going to continue to scale capital and our resources in terms of the people who can actually help. And the coolest thing is, like, I think we're going to continue to grow our partnership. We're actually going to continue to have the best founders go through the program, and then increasingly they're going to come back and be group partners. They're going to be the people who are shepherding the next generation, and I just want all of that to go a lot faster.
I just love that you just called Palantir, Facebook, NYC cults. I mean, that's
a good cult. It's a religion.
Going a little bit back in time, you actually left a job to take this job, and that job was leading Initialized Capital, a venture firm that you co-founded over a decade ago with Alexis Ohanian and Harj Chagar. But you were the last co-founder left. How were you able to leave your venture firm, legally speaking? I know there's a lot of questions around the fund you had just raised. Were you the key man? Were LPs okay with all of that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, off the bat, I have to point out, I always wanted to build Initialized sort of as a team. And when Paul Graham and Jessica Livingston came and asked me to consider coming back to Y Combinator, the first thing that was in my mind was, how do I make sure that our team, the team that we've built, they can stand there on their own. And then the really great thing is, Brett Gibson, he's one of the best hackers I've ever worked with. Like, we started multiple companies together. He actually built a bunch of the software at YC too. So we worked together for more than a decade. Jen Wolfe was actually my mentor very early. Like, I was actually a 16-year-old intern down the street working on a web design firm. And she taught me how to take the bus back to Fremont, where it was like, so these are some of the people I trust the most. And, we managed to figure out a way. And the best thing is, like, they can continue to do the great work that Initialized, we set out to try to build the best seed fund, the fund that would help people, really go from 0 to 1 and then 1 to, $1 billion. But, it's sort of working out great. Like, I can go back to where I started, and then I've given the fund actually to the new managing partners. And I think they're really on a true track for success.
So the fund survived, the LPs blessed it, you're able to leave, and it's in good hands.
Absolutely.
Okay. For the last few minutes, I'm going to shift gears, and we're going to talk about San Francisco, because we're here. And Garry is one of the most vocal pro-San Francisco tech people, which the numbers are starting to dwindle. I know you're very invested in the city, not only surviving, but thriving. What are your top 3 things in your wish list that you want City Hall to do?
Oh, God. I mean, I think number 1 by far has to be, we need to do something about the fentanyl crisis. And, this drug that's on our streets and, like, right outside of our doorstep, nothing like this has ever existed before. And it is, more people died from fentanyl overdoses than COVID, actually. It's something that is truly scary, and I think we desperately need recovery. We need treatment options, and that's something that I'm very worried about. Like, I think that the city does not invest in recovery. I'm a big fan of harm reduction as well, but I don't want to get in the weeds on policy. But zooming out, I think the most important thing is that the people in this room, especially if you live in San Francisco, you have a voice, and we're being heard now. We've recalled the DA, we've recalled school board members, we've actually removed a sitting far left supervisor from the West Side, which has not happened since district elections has gone in. So I think that, on the one hand, many of our friends have left, but for those of us who are staying, we're gonna win. 2024 is the year where we make San Francisco common sense again, and I'm really excited about that.
Okay. Fair enough. Work from home is an interesting topic. We're seeing some tech leaders not be okay with it anymore. They think people should go back to the office. Sam Altman was talking about that recently. And then we're seeing elected officials be in favor of going back to the office, seemingly as a solution for the downtown office vacancy challenges we're facing. How do you view work from home and return to the office?
Like, I think there's really two phases to every startup. There's the 0 to 1 phase where you don't know what your market is and you're still trying to figure it out. For that phase, there's really no substitute for being together. But I think we're seeing really great companies show that hybrid or remote can work for those later stages. And then can I share a dream of mine?
Please.
I think my dream for San Francisco is that why Combinator, we want to bring the world's talent to bear in San Francisco. We want to go deeply in person. We want people kind of like, just like in Rome and Athens in antiquity, people would send their best, smartest people from all around the world. I mean, I'm looking out on this audience, and people in tech are some of the most diverse people from all around the world who come here to come to San Francisco to exchange notes, to meet each other, to become trusted friends of one another, so that we can actually go build products that touch billions of people. How cool is that? And so my dream, both for YC, but for also all of us in tech, is that we're going to fill every single new and old office building that's empty right now, and we're going to fill it with brand new companies, creating new products, maybe powered by AI. And these are things they're going to touch the entire world, and we're going to build it right here.
So it sounds like you're kind of into the office sometimes.
I mean, I think 0 to 1, like, I highly recommend it. Like, if you put 0 to 1 team versus a remote 0 to 1 team, the one that's staring each other in the face and being able to have super high bandwidth communication, they're probably going to beat the other team 9 times out of 10.
We're coming up on our time, but I do want to bring back something you said earlier about folks from the tech industry who live in the city being able to vote and sort of make their voices heard. And I know that if you talk to some folks from underserved communities in the city, they would say that actually the city has been doing a lot of pro-tech industry policies for a long time. Mayor Ed Lee was famously a fan of the tech industry. We had the controversial Twitter tax breaks. How would you work with folks who are trying to solve San Francisco problems and who have that view? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are very common sense. We got to support them. We got to support them and tell each other, we need to work on their campaigns. We need to donate to their campaigns. I think.
But how would you work almost like across the aisle with folks who?
Well, we're all Democrats here, so that's the thing. There's no aisle here. I think ultimately, tax breaks or not, like, I sort of don't think that that's the important thing. What I want for the city is that we should have safe streets. We should have enough housing. I think housing was like sort of my first realization that, if we're not building new housing, then, if tech people are leaving, it means everyone else also cannot stay here either. And they might blame tech, but we have a role in fixing it. And that means, yes, in my backyard, we need to find and we need to vote in candidates who actually legalize building housing. It's pure market forces here, and people sort of deny that market forces are at work. I think they're just wrong, and we need our leaders to be doing the right thing for housing. And finally, great schools. The craziest thing is, like, people from all around the world come and try to set up their lives here in San Francisco, but then their kids have to go to private school to get a good education. And I'm not okay with that. Like, I grew up in the Bay Area, in great public schools. I grew up sometimes food insecure, and I was lucky to have a school that could teach me algebra in 8th grade, so I could take calculus, so I could study STEM at Stanford, and then sit up here and be in tech, period. Like, it is an incredible privilege and honor to work in tech. And I want that for everyone, and we should want that for everyone. And I think it comes back to voting for the right people.
All right, we're out of time, so I'm going to ask you one last yes or no question. Would you ever run for office?
Never. I want to
Wow.
be money in media. I think that's very scalable.
Fair enough. Well, we're out of time, so thank you so much for being here. And before you all get up and leave, we have one final word from our pro senior editor, George Moriarty. Thank you so much.